Starting right now, The Rita Panahi Show.
Good evening and welcome to the Rita Panahi Show. Coming up tonight, the ABC belatedly apologises to Gina Rinehart despite the Ombudsman finding the footage did not breach editorial policies. My panel will join me to discuss the day's top headlines. Almost 1 in 5 offices in Melbourne CBD sit empty. Property Council Victorian Executive Director Kath Evans will join me to discuss that. Stella Scabito will have the latest from the US, including Abdul Al-Sayed's victory in the Michigan Democrat primary. And singer Tate McRae faces backlash from the left. Kinsey Schofield will have the latest entertainment and royal news later in the hour. And Lefties Losing It features this travesty.
And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air.
But first, Climate Change Minister Chris Bowen slugged taxpayers more than $345,000 last year to travel the world to spruik his net zero ambitions. Chris Bowen's travel expense reports, released by the Independent Parliamentary Expenses Authority, show he spent an average of $7,500 a day on international travel across 46 days. That included $118,000 on a 9-day trip through the US, more than $79,000 on an 11-day trip in Brazil and Chile, $41,000 on a 6-day trip to Germany and Singapore in June, plus almost $7,000 for a one-night stay in New Zealand in December last year. Meanwhile, Chris Bowen did not even mention net zero once during his National Press Club address yesterday. Let's bring in Menzies Research Centre Senior Fellow Nick Cater and News24 contributor Louise Roberts. Nick, how does any of this pass the pub test? This is just extraordinary expenditure, seemingly to boost the ego of Chris Bowen.
You've just knocked the wind out of my sails here. Did you say $7,000 for one night in New Zealand? I don't know how you can spend $7,000 in one night in New Zealand. But the point is, this whole IPC process that he's involved in, this international climate change measure, which has been going on, what now, for 40 years or so, has actually put up emissions. Emissions have gone up from 39 gigatons to 59 gigatons in that period. So it's not working, Chris. Forget it. It's not working. Whatever you're doing flying around the world, it's not working. And it wouldn't be so bad, Rita, if he actually used this usefully, like I gather he stopped off in Finland. Well, did he visit the Olkiluoto 3 nuclear reactor, which is one of the best in the world? Of course not. I mean, the whole thing is bureaucratic nonsense. It's stacked up for people like Chris Bowen, who just like touring the world and feeling important. And what can we do about it? But it's just absurd.
Now, Chris Bowen, Louise, is again spruiking how popular batteries and solar panels are, even as he announces an increase in subsidies. If it's so popular, why do taxpayers need to subsidise it? That seems like a fairly obvious question that he doesn't seem to be able to answer.
No, he doesn't. He's not able to answer it because we know it's more expensive than they've ever described it before. And I mean, to the point about the $345K as well on all those trips. So what's the value in that for us as taxpayers? I mean, are our bills down? No. Is our energy system more reliable? No. And they always sort of spruik any of these programs, whether it's a battery program or these overseas trips, as a way to, really build our climate, our reputation abroad, and really sort of set us out as leaders in this space, when the average taxpayer at home is opening their bill and getting absolute bill shock and seeing, the Energy Minister, as we say, the Energy Minister flying around the world at our expense. It's just, whatever this scheme is, it's not working.
Not working for me. Now, the ABC has apologised to Gina Rinehart for the disgusting call to rape and murder her contained in a recent Race Around the World episode. This apology comes despite the broadcaster's formal complaints handling process finding the content did not breach editorial standards. But the public broadcaster has apologised because the segment, they said, fell short of community expectations. Nick, it beggars belief. How could the ABC Ombudsman find that that episode did not breach the ABC editorial standards relating to harm and offence. How?
Well, you've got to ask whether they have any standards at all to defend, haven't you? And the point about this whole incident, Rita, was not that some 20-something, clever sort of filmmaker made a stupid film. It's the fact that ABC management, presumably editors, the whole gamut of them, looked at this and said, yeah, that's good to go. Whereas clearly it offended standards, ordinary community standards, to put it mildly. I mean, it was deeply offensive, it was obscene, it was pornographic, it was violent. Name your adjective. This was a terrible, terrible piece of television. So I just don't understand, one, how it got to air in the first place, and two, I guess, why it's taken, 3 weeks, 3 weeks for the ABC to wake up and say, oh, yeah, we did miss the mark there. Oh, on consideration. They should have known the second it went to air, but they should have known, of course, before that, because it was a pre-recorded programme.
Exactly. This wasn't live television, Louise. This whole procedure with the ABC Ombudsman, should we stop allowing the ABC to mark their own homework? It seems just to be a ridiculous process. Why is this even something that we pause to consider? I wonder what the ABC Ombudsman will say. Oh, wait, they agree with everything the ABC does.
Yeah, of course, it is marking your own homework, really, isn't it? I mean, if they want an independent authority, yes, a properly, instigated authority to do this, but yeah. The whole thing was obscene, and the fact that he's not backed in the decision or the ABC have apologised on it is crazy. I mean, really, it's just open season then for the ABC to take pot shots at anyone they don't like, anyone they deem to be too rich or successful, or any politician or member of the public, or Mrs Reinhardt again, or whatever. So it doesn't actually give me much confidence that we won't be looking at another situation like this maybe in a few weeks' time.
And again, there's no logic here because they've made a big point of waiting for the Ombudsman's report. They've said the Ombudsman found they didn't do anything wrong, but finally here's the apology. So it really is rather confusing. Now let's move on to Labor introducing new rules to cut net overseas migration and push temporary residents to leave Australia. Net migration has outpaced Treasury projection every year since it exceeded 500,000 for the first time in 2023. Nick, the government is expected to announce a crackdown on asylum seeker work and appeal rights, limits on the number of backpackers allowed to extend their stay, and also a move to ban visitors from applying for family visas. Do you think these measures in unison are going to bring the numbers to something that is approaching a sensible level?
Well, it depends how tough they are in cracking down on these categories and how robust they're going to be in enforcing them. I mean, if somebody breaks the rules, for instance, will they be thrown out of the country pretty quickly, as they should be, because that's the best deterrent? One wonders with this government whether they've got the heart to do that. But this does, of course, I think they're at last grappling with the complexity of this, Rita. 180,000, I think, is the official quota. In fact, we let in more than 3 times that amount through these various temporary visa categories. And they're the ones that count. It's the net inward migration. It doesn't matter whether they're on a permanent or a temporary visa. They're here and they're looking for houses, they're using hospital care, they're taking jobs, etc. So at least they've started to grapple with this. But on their present form, on their form to date on immigration, going back right to the boat people, but right to the floods of boat people under the last Labor government, you just doubt whether they'll actually be able to achieve anything. But I hope they surprise us.
Louise, it's clear that One Nation is setting the tone here. We've had opinion polls showing that most Australians trust One Nation to deal with this issue above Labor and the coalition. And Labor can read those opinion polls as well as we can. They know this is a weakness for them.
Yeah, exactly. I think the issue of migration is almost moved beyond who's coming here. It's whether the government actually knows how to run this policy and how to actually protect the Australians who are living here. It's, they may sort of argue that One Nation is, racist, or they're sort of too polarising in a way, but they do speak to the core concern, which is who is living here and should they be allowed to live here and what do they contribute to Australian society.
Now let's talk about the gap in literacy and numeracy between boys and girls. This is an issue I've written about for many years, and that gap just seems to be widening. We've got female students outperforming males, particularly in literacy. Boys still do a little bit better when it comes to numeracy. And the latest NAPLAN results, we saw the largest gender gap recorded in 4 years. University of Sydney Associate Professor Marianne Vidal-Fernandez said boys who suffer from some sort of disadvantage tend to suffer more than girls. She also said schools and parents need to be aware of a confidence imbalance between boys and girls. Louise, girls are ahead of boys from preschool to university, and it's been that way for some time. If the reverse were true, we'd probably be talking about this a lot more. There'd probably be a lot more programs to correct that imbalance, but most people seem quite comfortable with the status quo right now, and they don't see this as anything that needs to be addressed. But it is an issue. You can't have that gap widening further and ignore it.
That's right. So boys who are struggling with writing and English in Year 3, for example, in that story, are going to struggle even more once they're in high school and, of course, getting towards doing their HSC or their IB or whatever path they choose on that. And you have to ask what's being taught in the classrooms. I know we've spoken about this as well, that I really feel for the teachers because they've got a curriculum which is so chock-a-block full of, diversity messages and ideology and everything else, that the actual fundamentals which we want our children to leave school with, to be competent in maths, to be competent in writing and reading and be prepared for their future career. And when you see this gender data, everyone thinks, well, that's the way it is. Boys are better at that and girls are better at this, but it should not be that way. We can't just accept that because we're so used to seeing that data. Yeah.
Now, before you go, we've got to talk a little bit more about CGT. This is a mess. Treasurer Jim Chalmers has released 4 additional pieces of draft legislation and memorandum notes to try and clean up the government's contentious capital gains tax and negative gearing reforms. Under the new regime, people who hold existing investments beyond July 1 next year must apply 2 different tax rates when valuing those assets. Gains made before the new financial year are eligible for the existing 50% discount on capital gains tax, and gains made after that date will fall under the government's new inflation indexation system. And for unlisted assets like an investment property, a property, Jim Chalmers has given investors the choice to hire a valuer or Treasury's do-it-yourself valuation method, which is included in the legislation. Nick, accountants are warning that the do-it-yourself method is complicated and would potentially overtax gains made from some assets. I mean, this is just such a hot mess.
It's legislation, they're making it up as they go along, Rita. There was far too little planning went into this. First of all, it's very bad legislation, to tax assets in the way they're doing is never worked anywhere in the world. But then they put it in a great rush. There's no modelling. Nobody's thought this through. They haven't worked out all these individual cases and how to guard against unintended consequences. And so they're having to patch it up. 100 pages of explanatory memoranda was released overnight. I hope every accountant in the country has read that already and taken that on board. This is an absurd way to carry on. It will make a lot of work for the accountancy industry, of course, and probably the legal industry too, and the courts. Yeah, I mean, that's great. If that's what Jim Chalmers wanted to do, if it was a make-work scheme for accountants, he's done very well. But
yes,
in terms of good, sound legislation, it's appalling.
Yes, Louise, this is good for accountants, it's good for solicitors, and it's good for valuers. I mean, the cost of hiring a valuer to value any investment properties you may have, it is absurd, and it's not something that was factored in. We never talked about that when this changes to the capital gains tax and negative gearing were first announced.
No, and of course it was never brought to the electorate, was it? It was snuck in afterwards, so we didn't have a say in any of it. And to think it's going to cost you, particularly as a small business, thousands of dollars to sort of navigate this minefield of new legislation, which you didn't want to have to deal with in the first place, or you do a DIY version where you could easily make an error and end up paying more tax already. So it's a no-win situation for anyone dealing with this, particularly if you're a small business, but also at a property if you've got a property investment as well. So I think the very least they should have done after inflicting this on the electorate was to make it as simple as possible to understand. I mean, this is an absolute joke. They're offering up a calculator on the ATO website. I mean, who's going to use that? I mean, you would not trust that in a million years, would you?
Yeah, I wonder if they came, the same people in Treasury who decided all these policies were just going to lead to a $2 increase in rent per week. They're the ones who put this calculator together. That would be fantastic. Nick Cater, Louise Roberts, thanks for your time. Now, Melbourne remains the nation's office vacancy capital, with almost 1 in 5 CBD offices sitting empty. The office vacancy rate in Melbourne sits at 18.9%. Compare that to Sydney on 13.3% and Brisbane on 10.2%. And you can expect the situation in Melbourne to deteriorate further, with work from home being enshrined into law from September 1. Joining me now is Property Council Victorian Executive Director Kath Evans. Kath, the new Premier Ben Carroll says he is open to sensible amendments to these laws. What would you like to see?
Look, there's a raft of amendments that we've put forward to really improve the operations of this bill. As it stands at the moment, the bill is absolutely unworkable. There are so many issues that need to be addressed. For example, the right for workers to stack multiple entitlements together, which may in fact mean that they are have an eligibility to work from home for more than 2 days per week, that there be a cap on employer costs in contributing to a home office, that there be an ability to direct employees as to what actual days they should or can work from home to ensure that there's sufficient coverage throughout an office. There's also a proposal put forward to enable business to change these entitlements to really meet the needs of the changing environment for a business. For example, if you have peak periods in a business and you need all hands on deck, you need to be able to vary a work from home arrangement so that you can maximise the attendance of people in an office at a particular time. They're just some of the amendments that we have put forward.
Now, Melbourne CBD has got all sorts of issues right now. Crime issue, it's an expensive place to drive, to park. Can you understand why there are many workers who want to work from home if they can?
The Property Council has always supported flexible working arrangements. We have made that very clear throughout our commentary on this issue. We do not believe there is actually a problem to solve here in Melbourne at the moment. The majority of workers who can work from home do have flexible work offerings, and the data clearly shows that. What we're against is setting up a new regulatory environment which is different from the rest of the country, which puts a very big burden on employers to comply with the set of regulations. And we're calling for there being a level playing field so that Victoria is not a destination that repels investment because it has different label areas to everywhere else in the country. Employers and employees have successfully navigated flexible work for several years now. This is not a problem that needs this is not an issue that needs a legislative solution. It is done by agreement between parties and pursuant to the entitlements that people have, either under the Fair Work Act or through enterprise agreements.
Kath, Victorian Labor's relationship with the business sector is at an all-time low. Can that trust be rebuilt with this new Premier? Have you sensed a shift in the mood since he's taken over?
The Premier and the Treasurer have made it clear that they are open to discussing issues with the business community. The Premier has made it clear in the public domain that he has an appetite for some amendments to this bill. We really welcome the opportunity of working with the Premier and Treasurer on a range of policy areas to improve business conditions here.
Kath Evans, thank you so much for your time. Still to come, lefties losing it, plus the latest from the US, including Abdul El Sayed's victory in the Michigan Democrat primary. Stella Escobedo is next. You're watching the Rita Panahi Show, and it's time for Lefties Losing It. Let's check in on a Democrat at the beach. This is Kirill Basin, a Democratic congressional candidate terrorising beachgoers in Maui.
Put your bag away. I told him if he wants to go to the hospital, come here. You.
Got my girls, right? You're not talking about my girls, right?
I don't care.
Don't do that, dude. Don't do
What
that.
are you gonna do?
Go ahead, just go. Just
What
go.
are you gonna do?
Don, go ahead.
Am
Go
I?
ahead.
I didn't put him in the ground. Let's go, bro.
But when it came time to fight, the Democrat got a dose of instant karma. A warning, this next clip is confronting.
Oh, chair thrower.
Confronting yet satisfying. Don't worry, folks, he was fine. He was up and about within seconds. The New York Post reports our Democrat friend had told beachgoers he had a gun and pulled a knife on the man afterwards. The congressional candidate allegedly tossed the knife in the water, but police recovered it and arrested him for 2 counts of first-degree terroristic threatening. Dear me. Now to the WNBA, where coaches are lining up to attack Sophie Cunningham, to attack women's rights, to attack biological reality. Not one coach or player has stood by Sophie, and that speaks volumes. This is a league of mad ideologues, idiots and cowards, it must be said, because you can be sure there'd be plenty who agree with her 100%. But let's hear now from the Golden State head coach, Natalie Nakase, with this incredibly dumb virtue signalling.
Sports is about belonging. It's about inclusivity. It's about allowing everyone to be their authentic self. I'm big on that just because I have been criticized for my height, for my ethnicity. I'm all about women, little girls deserving to play, and that includes trans women. So I'm all about inclusivity.
Sport is not about belonging, particularly elite sports. It's about competing. And women cannot compete with men because men are bigger, stronger, faster. This is obvious stuff, folks. That's why we have a WNBA. The W stands for women, and that does not include so-called trans women. I won't even start on the idiocy of comparing a man pretending to be a woman with height or ethnicity. Now, let's round out Lefties Losing It with what is tantamount to treason. Listen to how the national anthem was butchered at the opening Women's Professional Baseball League game in Springfield, Illinois. Why, Martha Reeves, why?
Through the perilous fight, all the rappers we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air.
Look, I'm not saying you should be locked up for doing that to the anthem. You know what? Maybe I am saying that. Let's bring in Emmy Award-winning journalist and host of Stella News, Stella Escobedo. Stella, that was painful. How can you even explain that? That is supposed to be a leading musician, not just someone off the street.
I mean, that was an assault on our national anthem, Rita. When I heard that, I was like, what am I listening to? The good news is this league is a new women's league for baseball, so it got some attention, not for the right reasons, but everyone is talking about this because of the singing. You know, it's interesting because they can create this whole league, find the players, the stadium, but they forgot to check if the singer could still hit the notes.
Yeah, it's the anthem. Surely you can find someone to do the anthem. Now let's go to Michigan, and another socialist has prevailed. This time it's Abdul El Sayed, who won the Democratic nomination for the US Senate seat in Michigan, defeating an established candidate, Haley Stevens. Stella, tell me about this character, Abdul El Sayed.
How much time do we have? Okay, I'm going to tell you in a nutshell. Listen, he ran as a Democrat. He's not a Democrat. He aligns with DSA, Democrat Socialists of America, who are anti-American. Now, DSA, they're not just socialists or communists. They are Islamo-Marxists. He campaigned with Hassan Piker, who said America deserved 9/11. I mean, the core tenet of his campaign was AIPAC, Israel. But you know what's interesting is he got a lot of money from people who were either still part of CARE or were with CARE. CARE is an unindicted co-conspirator in the largest Hamas terror financing case in U.S. history. It is a designated terrorist organization in Florida, in Texas. He also, stood up for Muslim Brotherhood when he was a professor in Columbia University. Senate Republicans came out with a video today, basically also talking about how he aligns with Muslim Brotherhood. There's a Senate Judiciary Committee going on right now as we speak about Muslim Brotherhood. And Abdul Al-Sayed was brought up because of his, ties to CARE. His father-in-law was a director of CARE Michigan at one point. I mean, shall we go on?
Yeah, you said you could go on, and you can. I mean, this character, the fact that he would openly cozy up to someone like Hassan Piker, someone whose views are so hard left, radical. I mean, he's called for people to be murdered. He is openly celebrated the biggest monsters of history who slaughtered millions of people. So this is a disturbing trend we're seeing amongst the Democrats, because they are Democrats. They might call themselves Democrats, socialists or socialists, but they're part of the Democratic Party. They've got that D next to their name. And El Sayed's victory, it's going to be a bit of a reckoning for the Jewish population in Michigan. Tell me about that. Tell me about what the feeling amongst the community is there, because this man is very outspoken in his views, and he's not a friend of the Jewish state, to say the least.
No, his core campaign was running on AIPAC in Israel. It was very Mandami-esque, like pro-Palestine, where he basically aligned himself with, oppressor versus oppressed. He went really hard after the Black community. A lot of the Black community, though, did not vote for him because that was the core tenet, the DEI movement, the intersectionality of like, my people in the Middle East are oppressed and therefore you are oppressed in America. He is not a friend of the Jewish people. There was a terrorist attack at a synagogue in Michigan, and he basically came out and said, hurt people, and the man who was behind this terrorist attack, the synagogue, his brother was a commander in Hezbollah. He also came out today and he tried to gaslight the Jewish people and pander for the Jewish votes like Mandami did, and he said, to my Jewish brothers and sisters, I would like to break bread with you on Seder. He knows nothing about Judaism because Seder is Passover, and on Passover we don't eat bread, we eat matzah.
Now, you're so right, and there is a lot of Mamdani about him. Just his persona, the way he campaigns, you can see the parallels there, not just in their policies. And he's also sensitive about his full name being mispronounced. Listen to this.
They think that you want to use my whole name against me. Mike, listen, man, if you can't say the name, it's Abdurrahman, keep the name out your damn mouth.
And the man who is a devout Muslim has an interesting Instagram algorithm.
The things that I actually look at on Instagram, right, of course we get served that on your For You page. But then like every third video that scrolls on its own is going to be some OnlyFans model. And it's because it clocked me as being a 40-some-year-old man.
Oh, dude, that's not how Instagram or the algorithm works. Stella, he told on himself there, didn't he?
Oops. When I saw that video, Rita, I was like, no, that's not how that works. You know what's interesting? Here's an interesting observation. His wife, he's a devout Muslim, so his wife wears a hijab, but his algorithm doesn't. So there's something different about what's going on. That's not how that works. Okay. So the algorithm feeds you what you're looking at. It was interesting because after I saw that video, I went to my husband. I said, let me see your For You page. He's like, what? He's like, so, social media literate. He's like, what? And I go through it and it's fitness and steak. And he's like, what is this all about? I'm like, just checking. So he literally told on himself. And go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying, anyone who has spent any time on social media, particularly Instagram, knows how quickly the algorithm meets what you've looked at recently. So if you've looked at steak videos, if you've looked at fitness videos, that's what you're going to see popping up. Fitness videos from people you don't follow. But if you've been looking at bikini shots or OnlyFans girls, well, that's why your algorithm looks that way, doesn't it, Stella?
Absolutely. Like you said, he just told on himself. He didn't even realize. He's not even smart enough to realize what he did. But I want to quickly go back to him attacking people for not pronouncing his name correctly. The last time I checked, English was the language of the United States of America. If you don't like that, then you can leave.
Well, and also he doesn't use his full name, so he can't spring that on people, a name perhaps they've never heard, and be offended if it's mispronounced. Now, we are learning more and more about how badly institutions like the FBI and CIA were corrupted under the previous administration. There was revelations that the FBI opened up an investigation, a serious investigation into whether Donald Trump was wittingly or unwittingly acting as a Russian agent when he fired the then director James Comey back in 2017. The probe, called Oxford Comma, grew out of Crossfire Hurricane, and we all know about Crossfire Hurricane. The Bureau's probe into Mr. Trump's 2016 campaign was all about whether there was collusion with the Kremlin. That whole Russian collusion hoax was still running wild, Stella, and these latest documents that have been released by the White House really do paint a picture of the FBI being highly political, highly partisan, and not operating as it should.
No, and it's exactly what we knew when it was happening, that Russia collusion had nothing to do with Russia colluding. It was always about President Trump and getting President Trump. So the latest information that we're getting is, for them trying to accuse President Trump of being whatever, a spy for Russia, was once again because he had fired Comey. That's why that happened.
Yeah.
And, it also just proves to you just how the narrative was also being positioned in our rotten mainstream media. I mean, Rita, in the United States of America, you could not turn on the news without every single headline being about Trump, Russia collusion, when it was never true. And getting these papers now shows us more just how infiltrated and rotten, like you said, the FBI was.
Yes, it was a manufactured narrative by the Democrats that was picked up by institutions that should know better. And the media, there was no scrutiny, there was no critical thinking. It was just accepted and they ran with it for 4 years. This wasn't a short-term thing. They ran with those collusion hoaxes for 4 years. And Stella, I think that's really a big part of the reason why trust in the US media is at record lows. Polling that's been done shows something like 1 in 10 Republicans has any faith in the media. And I think that entire experience explains why, because they lied. They lied consistently for 4 years on one single issue.
And it proved to what President Trump always was saying, fake news, fake news. They tried to shove this down our throats only for it to be fake. And then people don't trust the mainstream media, because then we saw it again during COVID. We saw it again,
Yes.
we're seeing it again with other things. We're seeing it again, with academia, with, the pro-Palestine movement that we have happening in the United States of America. Again, the media not questioning the most basic information that you can Google, and you don't even need to go to Google, go to X these days, and you can find videos. So yeah, the trust in media was completely eroded because of that, because they try to shove that narrative down our throat, and it was fake the entire time.
Stella, we've been speaking a lot about the rotten culture of the WNBA. You've been outspoken about the treatment of Sophie Cunningham, who's been attacked, even undermined by her own coach and teammates for standing up for women's rights. Tell me about this phenomenon. I mean, I would have thought what she said was so unremarkable. She was basically saying men and women are different and women should be protected in their sport, in their locker rooms from male bodies.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even want to say she was speaking the truth. She was speaking reality. Like this woman came out and all she said was, biological men do not belong in women's sports or our locker rooms. And she has been viciously attacked for it. Her fans have been viciously attacked by grown men at stadiums who are calling young women trash. The whole thing has been disgusting. And then the coaches who, these are women who coach women who can't even come out and talk about the fact that biological men are built differently. They are coward. They are cowards, and they cowered behind this narrative of it like, well, trans in women's sports, it's really not that big of a deal. You know what? It may not be the biggest deal when it comes to sports, but it is a big deal, and we should be calling it out. And kudos to Sophie Cunningham for having a backbone, because these coaches, they don't have a spine. They don't have a backbone. They're cowards.
Absolute cowards, and so out of touch. The fans are loving Sophie, the regular everyday sports fans, but it must be difficult for her to work in an environment that's so hostile and divorced from reality. I mean, these people exist in a very small echo chamber. Now, before you go, I want to ask you about Perez Hilton. The celebrity blogger was hospitalised and is receiving medical care after a deeply disturbing TikTok live stream yesterday where he appeared to be covered in blood and using an object to cut himself repeatedly. We cannot show you even a second of that footage. Stella, I saw about 3 or 4 seconds of that video, and frankly, that was too much. This was so disturbing. Do we know what happened, and is he receiving the care that he needs?
Look, I am just like you. I saw his name trending on social media, not knowing why. And so I went on X and I looked it up, and I was like, it took my breath away. It was before they had taken it down, and I could not watch more than 3 seconds of myself. He was covered in blood. He was basically cutting himself, just so that people know what he was doing. Look, we don't know what led to that. He is in a hospital. He is getting the care that he needs. He's recently openly talked about how he's getting closer to God, and he was doing better. But I have to mention something. He also suffered from sepsis because of an ulcer, and I looked into it, and there are some symptoms that happen post sepsis. He's like 4 months out. That includes depression, anxiety. I'm not saying this is what it is. It could be connected, but all I have to say is I am praying for him, for his children, because that was so demonic. It was truly scary to watch.
It genuinely was one of the most disturbing things I've seen in a long time. And yeah, we have to note he does have young children. So there are innocent victims here, and hopefully he gets the care he needs. That looked like a full psychotic break. It really was quite disturbing. Stella Escobedo, thank you so much for your time tonight. Still to come, singer Tate McRae faces backlash from the left. Kinsey Schofield has the details. Welcome back. Now, if you want to see cancel culture, real McCarthyism, then look no further than the entertainment industry. Singer Tate McRae is facing backlash from the left for refusing to condemn Donald Trump. Tate has been dodging speculation she's associated with MAGA for over a year because she partnered with country superstar Morgan Wallen on a song. Keep in mind, Wallen has never publicly endorsed MAGA himself, but his music has been regarded as Trump-coded. Tate McRae was asked about her politics during an interview with Variety, where she said it's pretty obvious what side of the aisle she stands on. Joining me now is host of the Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered podcast. Kinsey, the left love to pretend they are the victims of modern McCarthyism. Oh, my gosh, I love that cap. That is a gorgeous cap and it looks good on you. But yeah, the left love to play victim. They love to pretend they're the victims of modern McCarthyism when they are the perpetrators, and that includes much of the media.
Oh, exactly. And Tate McRae isn't being attacked for something she said. She's being attacked for refusing to say what activists wanted her to say, like when they tried to cancel Jerry Seinfeld for refusing to yell "Free Palestine" in the middle of one of his shows. The entertainment industry loves to preach diversity unless it's diversity of thought. And the moment you don't perform the correct political ritual, you're treated like a suspect. Remaining politically private shouldn't be controversial. In fact, we stress how much we miss that life in that world all the time here. If silence is now considered an endorsement, then no public figure is ever allowed to simply stay out of politics. And please, for the love of God, we would prefer that they do.
Now, if you want to get a cap like that for yourself, shop.news24.com.au. That's the place you go, and you can look as good as Kinsey. Now, cooking legend Martha Stewart has claimed Meghan Markle spilled details about her family's meeting with King Charles in the UK. She told people that the pair were both guests at a dinner party in California after Meghan had just returned from the UK. She said, "I didn't talk to her really more than to say a couple of words, but I know she was talking about it." Kinsey, imagine my shock. I can't believe she hasn't already talked about it on a podcast or on Netflix, so I'm not at all surprised by this.
Right, but pretty mortifying for Martha Stewart to publicly call you out for clout chasing. I mean, if I'm Meghan Markle, I'm dying right now. But Meghan has spent years telling us she wants privacy, yet stories about private conversations between Meghan and whoever somehow keep making it into the public domain. For someone who says she values discretion, that's an awful lot of secondhand storytelling coming from dinner parties. The Sussexes have complained about leaks for years, but they don't complain about the leaks that make them look more interesting.
Now, emails published as part of the Epstein files have revealed Jeffrey Epstein was preparing to blackmail Sarah Ferguson after she tried to distance herself from the pedophile financier in an interview. The former Duchess of York told the Evening Standard in March 2011 of her deep regret over her ties with Epstein. And Kinsey, a legal letter sent to Sarah's lawyers in April 2011 following the interview, called on her to, and I quote, reconsider her current stance. Sounds a little bit sinister to me.
Oh, I mean, I think those are the words of someone not just protecting their reputation. They're the words of someone who does not like being rejected. Any communication connected to Jeffrey Epstein deserves to be combed over. His pattern was influence, leverage, and intimidation. But if it's just us girls here, let's not pretend like Sarah Ferguson was hard to blackmail. I mean, she was allegedly a heathen, Rita.
She's got a lot of questions to answer. Some of those emails she sent after Jeffrey Epstein was convicted on just disgusting charges where she was referencing her daughters, her young daughters. I mean, I find so much of what happened and what's been revealed in the Epstein files deeply troubling. Rosie O'Donnell, she's going to be joining the rotating stable of celebrities filling in for Jimmy Kimmel during his time off. She told a podcast that she was hoping to perform a parody of If I Only Had a Brain from The Wizard of Oz, targeting who else but Donald Trump. But she says ABC rejected her suggestion. Kinsey, just when you thought the Jimmy Kimmel show couldn't get any more pathetic, Here comes along Rosie. Can you just imagine what it's going to be like when she's hosting?
Yeah, recycling the same Trump jokes we've heard for a decade. And if ABC rejected it, maybe even they realize audiences are exhausted by political lectures disguised as comedy. But it doesn't surprise me that Rosie would use this opportunity to take a swipe at Trump. She's been pretty irrelevant lately and hasn't had a platform like this. And it's got to be hard when your harshest critic is one of the most powerful men in the world.
And she wasn't invited back for the anniversary of The View. She kind of announced her return to The View without being asked. So it's fairly humiliating to have to then acknowledge that the invitation was never extended. She has been doing an inordinate number of podcasts saying the craziest things. As she says, she's determined, Kinsey, to return back to America because she misses her children. I can't believe you would leave a country, leave your grown children behind just because you don't like the president. I mean, where are your priorities?
Yeah, I mean, you probably do miss your children when they're in the slammer, don't you? I mean, I don't know what to say. She's at least we should give her credit for being one of the celebrities that actually did flee the country after they swore up and down that they were going to leave if Donald Trump became president. I still see Miley Cyrus on the streets of Sunset Boulevard. You know, Cher is still a resident of this country. So Barbara Streisand is still paying those taxes. So it's like, I'll give her credit for leaving, albeit briefly, because she is back in the game. She's got a new facelift she's got to pay for, and she's ready to work, Rita.
She does have a new facelift. I would, I want to know who her doctor is so I can avoid them when it's time for my facelift. Now, Keith Urban is said to be heartbroken after learning that Nicole Kidman has moved on with a new man. Kidman was seen looking rather affectionate with private equity businessman Michael Reinstein. Kinsey, an insider, told New Idea that Urban had hopes that he and Kidman might one day repair their relationship. I mean, I would have thought that would be hard. Didn't he cheat on her?
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
I mean, this is not the first story like this that we've discussed, and I'm a little cynical here. I have to wonder if Team Urban plants them for sympathy. If these reports are true, it's always sad when a long marriage comes to an end. Beyond that, to your point, reports suggested it was actually Keith that pulled the trigger. So we'd hope Nicole would find someone else to love and appreciate her. But both parties are high-profile brands, and they're going to try to protect that brand. So I'm sure Keith would love to play the victim these days, but I'm Team Nicole forever.
I'm Team Nicole on this one, and I like the fact that she's with this private equity dude who's not seeking fame. He seems to be his own man, ridiculously wealthy, and hopefully he's been good to her because she's had some shockers in the past. Now, before you go, Sean Diddy Combs' prison release has changed again following a recent prison brawl. The disgraced hip-hop mogul is now set to get out of prison on Feb 20, 2028. Kinsey, the prison brawl saw him land in solitary confinement. What else do we know about what happened?
I mean, I just sit back and ask myself, along with Epstein, where are all of the other people that were tied to both of these stories? And why are Jeffrey Epstein and Diddy the only individuals that are being held accountable if there was so much talk about these other high-profile celebrity people, whether it was Bill Gates or Kevin Hart, God love Kevin Hart, or some of these other people attached to them? Are we really just going to pretend like the story ends here? And I mean, maybe we'll revisit it when he's released in 2028, but I'm patiently waiting to see if anybody else is held accountable. If we're really dealing with sex trafficking, that's a serious, that's a serious accusation.
Absolutely. My thoughts exactly. We were told so much about the rich and powerful people who were partaking in these freak-off parties, who were perhaps taking advantage of trafficked young women. And yet we haven't had any arrests, any investigations that we know of. Really, nothing has come of it. It seems like Diddy was the only criminal in that enterprise. Kinsey Schofield, thank you so much for your time. And that's it from me. Up next, it's Late Edition. Good night.